Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. New episode of the podcast, changing up the format a little bit. Today's episode's a fun one. My guest and I talked about, what it's like for him to perform stand-up outdoors, of course, during this godforsaken pandemic, like pretty much every stand-up comedian is having to do. What it was like to have the amazing opportunity to open for Dave Chappelle. Crazy. We also talked about several other things. He also gave me some good information on just what his overall process is like. He's appeared on Conan, The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, and he also has his very own half-hour special on Comedy Central. Today's guest is Matthew Broussard. You can follow him on all social media at Monday Punday. The episode starts right now. I had to reach out and ask you because I can't remember the exact date, but I was introduced to you through this Zoom show. I want to say it was in late August. Mark Norman was on it, Caitlin Polifo, and you did this bit. I want to say we're about being Jewish and going to it. Was it Israel, or I don't want to butcher it. Yeah, and I was laughing so hard I couldn't breathe. I was crying.
Thanks. Oh, thanks. Yeah. That's a pretty new one, so I really appreciate that. Yeah.
No, I just I felt awkward because I was one of the few guys. I'm well, I'm gonna be brave and just unmute myself because a bunch of people just weren't unmuting themselves.
You mean a hero? That's what we call that. A Zoom show. The people who unmute themselves are heroes.
Well, I was just let me do this because I'm screw it, I'll buy tickets to this, and I didn't know how it was gonna go.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm all right.
Who put on that show? What?
I think the host was Felicia Madison.
Oh yeah, West Side. Oh yeah,
West Side.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was my introduction to you, and I watched. Awesome. And then I watched clips from your half hour and was laughing, and the Spice Girls thing had me cracking up.
Thank you.
Because
Thank you very much.
The thing is, that's true. They do never actually say what they want, and that had me rolling.
Or they say it's one thing and it turns out to be another. That's always my favorite game of being I'm scrutinizing this one detail of being why did this upset you so much? And then a half an hour later, she'll reveal that it was actually a part of a much bigger thing. Overall, it's always just a facet. It's like synecdoche, or what's the word? Synecdoche. What's that word?
Oh. I'm not good with some words.
You know what I mean, though. Where it's
I know what you're trying to say. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know exactly how that works, but if I got that right, I would sound smart.
But no, I love it though. I mean, it sounds like, to me, and I don't really know a lot about how stand-up comedy works, which is another reason why I'm doing this, just to get insight into, the brains of the people who actually do it. I'm just a fan. I just like watching and listening to the stuff.
Who are your favorites?
Well, I think I can't remember the name of it, but the very first stand-up special I ever watched was Chappelle. One of Chappelle's back in the day. And
Killing Him Softly, probably.
That's probably what it was, or maybe, I can't remember. Was that before he did Chappelle's show or after?
Before.
Okay, well then, yeah, that's what it was then.
That was his HBO. That he said to me, that it was a dud at the time it came out. He said that on Monday morning he checked with his agent and no one called. Went, and it took years to slowly ramp up to the legend, the classic that it is. So
it's and that and Chappelle's show, and for the longest time, that's all I'd watch, and I'd watch sketch type shows like that, and as far as stand up, the bigger people like George Carlin. It's the bigger stuff that you'd see on HBO or something. And then it's crazy, when the pandemic hit, I just started, I'm this is a dark time. I just, I'm going to start, I've always liked comedy movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm and I just started really getting into watching stand up. And I heard a podcast my cousin played for me, and it was kind of a trickle effect. And everybody that I like is from New York. or lives in New York. And it's all kind of like nobody that's like super big, but they're popular and they have a fan base. It's not
those are the best comics. The Mark Normans, the
exactly
Sam Morrills, yeah.
Exactly. And that's the kind of stuff I lean towards.
Yeah.
Basically.
And it's not a function of art by any means. The reason I think New York comics tend to have those stronger acts in terms of the writing is because the amount of shows you get to do in New York City. There's a turnover. There's a culture of going out here that I've really witnessed since the pandemic, since things started kind of lightly reopening, is there's people at every show, whether it's at like Drizzly Parks, people will still show up, rooftops. Like even when it was dicier early on when we didn't know if it was going to get shut down, people love to go out. People love to go do things. I don't think there's a sense of that in any other city in the country as strong as New York. And we just get this huge turnover of crowds. You can perform. I mean, I perform for probably up to 1,000 people a week around New York City at peak speed. And it's a new 1,000 people every week. So the amount of people I get to perform for, and I think, that's why those New York guys are, good. And also when you're talking about like not the big names, like a little more unknown, it's because they have a little more hunger, I'd like to think. I mean, once you build that fan base, you can be a little lazy.
That's it's crazy. Like just from watching interviews with other comics and stuff, it just seems like there's always a lot of, even before, especially before the pandemic hit, there's just like lots of shows, like multiple shows a night. And they'd say like, oh, I'd go doing 4 or 5 a night. And I was like, wow, like blows my mind.
The repetition's the part that people outside probably don't understand, is how often you're performing. Ronnie Chang, you should watch his new Netflix special, has a great bit about people being like, when's your next show? And he's like, well, I probably have 4 or 5 spots tonight, as I do every night. So it's the thing about comedy is you train by doing it. So that's why it takes so long to get good, because you only get to practice it while you're actually doing it. There's no simulation, there's no gym. No drills. You just have to be in front of a crowd telling jokes to get better at that. So
like the thought of that, like just the thought of even attempting that just frightens the hell out of me. But like that's pretty much what everybody says. Like the only way to do it is to just do it.
Yeah, to fry your nerves. It's very, people think about stage fright as this unnatural thing. It's a very natural thing. Evolution. My theory is evolution has programmed us to view those situations where you could potentially embarrass yourself in front of dozens or hundreds of people as a moment where you could potentially ruin your status within a tribe, and therefore no longer be appealing to the opposite or the preferred gender, and no longer be able to pass on your genes. So it's a way of protecting your evolutionary line by not embarrassing yourself. So the fact that you feel a life or death sense of fear going up in front of people is a natural thing. And it's like skydiving, in that you just have to do it a bunch of times to fry your nervous system and not feel those nerves. And the unfortunate part about comedy is,
deal. I'm jumping out of a plane, whatever.
Yeah. People who do it every day, it's not like natural. You've just burnt your wiring. You've short-circuited your brain. And it's the unfortunate part about comedy, though, is the more nervous you are, the worse you are at it. So you're like, oh, if I don't get nervous, I'll do well. But if I do get nervous, I'll do poorly. So that creates a negative feedback loop. But what if I get nervous? And then you will. So you have any performance, music, sketch, acting?
Oh, I'm literally just a fan. Like when I was in high school, I was in bands and stuff. But I mean, like you were talking about like the stage fright thing. Like, ugh. Like I would always be like almost like break out in a sweat. Like I can't do this. And then once you like get up on stage and start, it seems a little more comfortable. Yeah. That was back when I was younger. That's back when I was a teenager. And now I'm just.
What do you do now? Where are you?
I am. This is so depressing. I was engaged about 2 years ago, and that kind of went. So I had to move back home with the fam. That's just how my situation is. I live in Virginia. I don't really care about Prince William County. It's probably about 35 minutes south of DC.
Okay.
So fairly close to DC and Arlington.
So it kind of is the southern vibe there?
It's a mix. If you go maybe about an hour south of here. It's this town, and you've ever heard of Fredericksburg?
Yes.
It gets kind of southern there, and it gets, just the further down you go, the more twang in the voice. And
yeah.
But I mean, it's fairly, like I said, it's fairly close to like DC, and Arlington's like right close to DC, the Pentagon, that whole area there. And I didn't even really know of, I don't really know of much of a comedy scene around here other than there's the DC Improv and the Arlington Draft House, which I just went to the end of September.
Oh, there's so many good shows in DC. Big Hunt is a weekend venue. I think they do weeknights too. That's really great, run by Sean Joyce. He runs shows, I think, every night. There's a huge alt scene. There's the Beer Baron, the DC Comedy Off the Beer Baron, which I perform at. Yeah, like you said, the Improv, and I forget there's one more. There's a lot of comedy in DC. That's a great. You should check out local shows. You should check out specifically not the club shows. The when they reopen the alternative venue shows, so bars and I guess small theaters. Yeah,
like I didn't even know that stuff existed. Like I would always know about the fairly more, I guess, publicized ones, or I guess like an actual, because like the Arlington Draft House, and I went there, like I had never been there. I'd heard of it. Mm-hmm. And apparently it's just like a theater they convert to a venue when there's events.
Yeah. Yeah, I've performed there once, I think. It's a movie theater, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's all rooms. Cool, man.
Yeah, so I'm just, I feel like the smaller comics whatever out of New York, like I feel like I'm discovering all this stuff for the first time. Well, because I am, like I've always liked watching it and listening to it. I was just never as into it as I am now. I think just with the state of the world and everything, and everybody's complaining about this or that, and I just want to laugh,
Yeah.
And I know so many people that just get offended so easily, and I shake my head. I'm just like, and like I'm tired. Like there's so many people like complaining and it just drives me crazy. Like complaining is like one of my pet peeves. I mean, I think it's natural to complain to some extent, but I'm like, I'm gonna go laugh, because there's just so much. I don't get political. I don't like talking about politics, but, and it's like when I discovered like all this like comedy, like I was like, oh, it's almost like I forgot how to laugh, and I was learning to laugh again. And it was just like, I was just discovering this brand new thing I didn't know existed. And I've just become like just a different person, personality wise. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I don't know if that makes me sound like an alien.
No, that's pretty standard, actually.
Okay.
That's how people react to comedy typically. What was the last live show you saw?
September 25th.
Who was it?
Mark Norman and Chris Allen, and I can't remember who the host was. And then before that was the Zoom show, and then before that it was like 10 years before that.
Wow.
At a Funny Bone in Richmond.
Who was that?
I don't remember. It was I remember I had tickets for my birthday, and I remember just being really drunk and not knowing who I was seeing. Like it wasn't anybody really big, nobody I had heard of. But
those are the best people.
Yeah, but I remember it was a lot of fun. I liked the intimate setting. Like you sit down and the stage is right there. Like they're right in front of you. But of course, like I was wondering how this socially distant stuff would go, because in the Draft House they had like the seats separated by groups of two, and there were some tables that had 4 chairs in case there was like a bigger group,
Yes.
And every seat was full, but they were all spaced out and everything. So I mean, it was.
Did they have tables?
They had tables.
Okay.
They had some like right in front of the stage was like 4 rows of seats that were just completely blocked off, and then there was like kind of like a little bar area. Mm-hmm. And they had 2 chairs and then a table with an X, and then 2 chairs and a table to like separate. And that's pretty much how it was. I mean, I'd say it was fairly safe. I mean, everybody was spread out.
Acme was like that in Minneapolis, but they didn't have tables, which is so jarring to just see people sitting in chairs. I didn't see tables, so it just looked like pairs of chairs just randomly strewn about the room and very far apart. So it was peculiar looking. I can't describe how, but
so did it look awkward?
It just looked it was weird because you could just walk around freely. Like you could dance around the room and probably not hit anyone. Like if there was a place in the room you were heading to, you could likely head in a straight line to it, unobstructed by chairs because they were so sparsely spaced out.
And you're used to it being like just
jammed in. That's what you want with comedy. You don't want room. You want to be sitting next to a stranger. You want your shoulder to be bumping someone you don't know.
Yeah.
You want low ceilings, cramped, dark, uncomfortable chairs. Those are all strong. They just make people laugh more. A little cold. All that fun science of what makes a good room. But I would say the post-pandemic crowds are the excitement makes up for all those logistical shortcomings. People are just very, very excited to be out and about, and the ones who are there tend to just know the deal. They just tend to be good comedy fans. It's not their first comedy show.
Yeah.
And imagine if you're doing it after all these months away. You're not. You're the exception, but a lot of people come to comedy shows, not their first show, or they're not new to comedy in general. They're good consumers.
Well, like I just, I'm like, I figure all these people are out here because they want to laugh, know, and then I'm watching like just things on Instagram about like all these outdoor shows in New York. I was like, man, I want to go to New York and go to one of those. It looks like so much fun.
Outdoors
to me, fun. Anyways.
The rooftops are really cool. Tiny Cupboard in particular is a venue in New York. Just the top of an apartment. There's a bodega on the ground level, then it's an apartment. It used to be an art space. And now they have this whole big rooftop, and they just put chairs out there. And there's like 2-3 shows a night, and people show up. It's Bushwick, which is known for being, very Brooklyn, very woke and socially conscious. And for some reason, the crowds are they're just not too sensitive. One sec, sorry, I gotta put this in there. Do not disturb. The crowds are really chill. I'm used to Brooklyn getting some pushback on a lot of subjects, but since quarantine, they're just, everyone's down. I like it a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like I've heard of just, I don't know. I guess when you say, so like it shows like that, Pete, there's just, I'm here for comedy. Like nothing you say will offend me. I just want to laugh. That's kind of
nothing, but they can sense sarcasm. They can sense when you're being facetious about a subject, and that's what's been. I've been noticing is just that we've spent kind of 6 months not interacting with people, and just reading Twitter and Facebook. And I think people are being incredibly dishonest on Facebook. There's this need to project fully one side, whether it's all the way left or all the way right politically, and you're not allowed to argue with any kind of moderate takes. You're not. You can't be like, hey, we should wear masks, but businesses should also maybe consider indoor dining. Like, there's no like, so people are very dishonest online, and we're seeing this inaccurate portrayal of everyone around us. When you go to a comedy show, you get it because you're there in person. You get a chance to be a little more honest, a little more. You say things that you wouldn't feel saying online. You wouldn't feel comfortable putting out there, and that reassures people that they're not crazy either.
Yeah.
This misrepresentation we all do of ourselves right now through social media, I think is lending some support to stand-up comedy. It makes it easier to connect with crowds.
So like when I have a few things written down here, like specific things I wanted to make sure I try to come somewhat prepared.
Yeah.
I don't want to give you like a massive headache. Or anything like that. How old were you when you decided that this is what you wanted to do for a living? Like, where were you at in life? Like, what made you decide, like, hey, I want to do this?
I just started doing open mics at 23, and I wanted to pursue it I wanted to pursue it professionally, but I knew that wasn't within my control. It was, if I worked hard enough and happened to be lucky enough, that it could become a job. But I knew I just had to do it as well as I could until that possibility presented itself. So I never decided I wanted to do it for a living. I just did it until that became an option. And there wasn't an exact moment.
Okay.
It just gradually
You're just kind of like, I like this. I
work.
want to.
I mean, I loved it. Yeah, I loved it immediately, and just said I'm going to do it as much as possible. About I think like a couple weeks in, I was doing it once a week for a couple weeks, and then I realized you could. There's places you could do it, and I realized that the only way to the only chance at making it a job was to do every single show I could do.
Yeah.
No nights off, no no hanging out with friends on weekends, just any venue I could be at, any chance to perform in my city, which was Houston at that time, I would be at. And I did that.
So it was okay. That's so your process seems to me like kind of is more natural. Like, I love this. I'm gonna try it.
I think that's most people's. Yeah,
like, I love. You weren't just like one day. I want to be I want to, or like I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be. It wasn't like that. You're just like, I'm gonna try this.
Yeah.
And
well, it's like I want to be a marathoner. You wouldn't just sign up for a marathon. You would be like, I'm gonna go run 3 miles, and then maybe next week I'll try to run 4. And that's kind of how it goes. It's a very slow process, and it just takes a lot of time and effort to kind of transfer it over.
That may be kind of like a general question, So, but I'm always curious about that stuff, Because
I imagine most comedians would have the same answer. You just start doing it.
Because there'll just be things where like, oh, I'd like to try this, or oh, I'd like to try that, and like going back to even just like you mentioned about getting on stage, you just got to try it. That's the only way you're going to know, right? To just try something.
That's my advice to anyone who's like considering starting. And you see it a lot. I see it a lot with people who are like, I've been considering it. What do you recommend? And there's only one answer. It's just go do it. I don't care what material you have ready. I think it was 9 days between my decision to do an open mic and doing it. It would have been 3, but I was busy. I mean, it would have been 2. So it was like, oh, I can do it Monday, or I can do it the Monday after. Well, I already have something for Monday, so I'll do it the Monday after. And then once you start, you're doing it. Once you've started doing comedy, you're a comedian. That's it. That's the cool part about it. Just there's nothing gained in delaying. It's a process you don't get better at. I love comparing it to swimming, because if you've never been in water before, there's not much you can learn about swimming. You can't watch videos of how to swim. You just need to get in water and splash around and see what feels right in terms of how to stay afloat. And you can watch YouTube videos and read books on it, but you're not going to be as experienced as a person who's just stepped into a pool one time. So that delay, that preparing material, it's not. It's a stall tactic.
That's a great analogy, actually. I never thought about that. I mean, pretty much anything else you can learn by watching videos on YouTube or getting an instruction book or something. But
no matter how much you prepare, once you get on stage, nothing will stick. Well, when you're on stage, all of the nerves of performing will wash away anything you've practiced. You won't have the presence to be deliberate. So you'll hopefully get out the words you want to say, but you won't have the physicality or ease that you intend to have. It's basically impossible. You definitely won't have the charm you think you have. So you just do it. You just get up and do it.
So like, did you take time and like write stuff like for your first down. Like, okay.
Yeah, I prepared stuff and I said it to myself out loud in the car, in the mirror a bunch of times, and maybe that helped, maybe it didn't. It was more just the energy of being on stage that I remember, and I had some jokes. They weren't good, but prepared it.
It's like I always like, man, I'd be worried I'd forget something. So I guess I imagine it's just kind of like song lyrics, just keep repeating it until you maybe remember it. I don't know.
Yeah, actually, the crazy part about the jokes is that you can memorize them too easily. The muscle memory of performance, once I've said a joke a certain way a couple times, not only can I not get away from that wording, I can't get away from that inflection. Once I've locked into an inflection, I have to very intentionally break away from it. But I can drone out my set on autopilot with I can be doing math problems. I can be thinking of my grocery list while I'm doing my performance. So then it becomes a struggle to be actually in your words in the performance. So memorizing is very easy. That's the thing people think would be very hard. That's crazy easy. It's the opposite. That's the struggle. It's the breaking away from your habits, from the muscle memory.
Oh wow! Like so, everything, like even like just how you're moving your body as you're telling the jokes and
Oh God, I
everything.
catch myself. I just like every time I do the joke like that, and I don't know when I picked it up. I took an acting class, and the teacher said if you practice a line the same way, if you
Hmm.
do it the same way more than 3 times, it'll take 6 repetitions to break it. You create muscle memory so quickly, and the more performed it is, the less natural it seems. So you look at like good like theater actors, they're
Hmm.
trying to find something different in the lines every night. And if it's new to you, you can say it in a new way. If you can do the joke, even if this is when I say in a new way, like it could still be the exact same words, but just said with a different inflection or with a different meaning, and it would seem very subtle to the audience or
Yeah.
to someone watching twice. But the effect is that it's just way more natural because if it's real to you, it's real to them. And if it's not real to you, it's not real to them. It's amazing how great the human mind is at spotting what's the word insincerity.
Uh-huh.
Insincerity.
So you're saying the more
We
performed it is, the less natural it comes across.
The more you're trying to act, yes.
Okay, yeah, I get. Yeah, that kind of makes
If
sense.
you're
Yeah, I get
thinking
what you're
about
saying.
what your hands are doing, you're not thinking about what you're saying. If you're thinking about how you're moving, that's not. If you're, I mean, when you get better at it, you can trick the crowd. There's plenty of nights where I know it's garbage, but the crowd seems to not mind.
Hmm.
Um, you can fake confidence, you can fake, and you have to eventually. You tell a good joke, you tell at least like 1,000 times, easy. If it's one of your best jokes, you'll do it. Yeah, you'll hit 4 digits, no problem. Um,
So you
and
wanted
then
to, I guess, come across as natural, but
you want it to be real.
without letting them know that you've went over it however many times. And
Make it sound the first time, and there's some acting in that, and then there's some, it's a cheesy thing. It's why acting classes are so uh, cheesy, and why when you hear an acting coach, they don't tell you how to say the line. They tell you to like think about your dad or channel these emotions, because the trick to acting is that no one can really do it well. You just make it real. If you want it to seem real, you make it real to yourself somehow, and if
mm,
you believe it, they do too. So that's part of it.
I, well, thanks for going into that for me. That's, I don't know. I want to make sure I ask decent questions. I'm curious as to how all this works.
Yeah,
Um, I saw on your Instagram the outdoor thing with Chappelle, the porch. Now that had to have been like a for you. That had to have been like a crazy experience. Because I was like,
yeah.
wow, he got to wow. So how did that come about? Like, how did that happen?
My girlfriend and I saw those shows were happening, and I knew someone who could get me a ticket,
Mm-hmm.
and so we went down just to watch, um, with the belief that there was a chance that I would get to perform.
Mm-hmm.
But we just watched the first night, and the next day I was leaving, and one of the people on the production side of the show,
Yeah.
I had messaged, and I caught up with him for coffee, and Dave was there, and we had met in the past, and he knew of
Yeah.
my comedy and was I got to perform. He was kind enough to give me the opportunity to perform, which I am by far the least impressive comic, the least accomplished comic to do that series, because the it's Dave on a regular night. If you go out there, you would see Michelle Wolf, Mo Amer, and Donnell Rawlings, all
Mm-hmm.
just huge comedians, very very good comedians. And then they've also had Jon Stewart, Dave Letterman, Chris Rock, Michael Che, Ali Wong, it looks like, was there, Tiffany Haddish, just an unbelievable roster of people performing as for. At the beginning of it, it was the only place in the country to perform, and
Mm-hmm.
it's also just a chance to perform with Dave, which who would say no to? So
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that I saw the pictures like that. That's amazing. Like I could only imagine what was like going through your head. Like I don't know. Like that literally seems like a dream come true.
I was actually pretty nervous. That was a set that was not chill for. I don't get nervous that often. That was one of those, like, only a couple times a year do I get that nervous for a set, and it's usually something high pressure, like a taping or yeah, that was big. Yeah.
How did the Comedy Central thing, the special, how did that end up happening? Like, how does that process even go? Like,
you should check out my podcast.
okay.
I
All
hate to
right.
plug my podcast on yours.
No, it's fine. I was going to ask you. No,
She's starting in comedy, but we go through all these little things. It's
okay.
It's just all of comedy. Anything you achieve in comedy is never the result of one night. There's never a get discovered moment. You go up every night. It's like, I don't know. It's like a marathoner or someone who, like, one of those sports where you put in the work and be like, wow, what won this race for you? Oh, the repetition, doing it every day.
Yeah.
Every person you perform in front of, how many people who decide things. You see you multiple times. So you have bad sets and good sets. So you turn a bad room into a good room. Like, you do all that, and it all starts with just picking up a microphone at a local open mic. It's the same route for everyone. There's no shortcuts. You just get good and people notice. And I'm not going to say it's a completely fair industry, because by no means is any, but of the entertainment pursuits, it is as close to a meritocracy as there is. It's hard to get a leg up if you're not funny. No one can make you funny. There's no way to pay for experience, really. There's connections don't really help. You just go do it every night. So that was a series of events of working with Comedy Central, showcasing for them, doing their original show, submitting a half-hour tape one year, it getting rejected, submitting a half-hour tape the next year, getting accepted. Probably a confluence of me having performed well on Roast Battle with them, personal relationships, numerous sets, all those things come together. Probably, I don't know, is music like that? Is it just one night and they're like, this is the band, we're signing him?
Well, I mean, I was never in that boat. I mean, but I've heard stories. Like, I went, there was like an indie band that was, the guys graduated with me, and it was like some underground label, and I don't know, they were just touring a lot and somebody saw them and that was it. I mean, but they just kind of kept doing it, and kind of like you said, just kept putting in the work, kept doing it, and
Yeah, that one night. Yeah, I think that's just good narrative of being discovered. I don't think it's real. Because that's the thing with comedy. Every night you're auditioning. Like, every night you're even like, it's neat. It's a thing that's inspiring to me, of like, just a night where you go to an open mic and perform in front of 6 comics, but one of them might really like that performance and remember it. And it might be years later when they're in a position to cast a show or hire someone or hire a writer or book a comic, that they remember that night. So you're just constantly investing, just putting money in different penny stocks, and you never know what takes off.
I guess I imagine you do it like every night because you never know when someone's going to see something. And
that's not I would not say that's the motivation of doing it every night. The motivation of doing it every night is just getting better. That's the focus of it. It's cheesy, I know, but like, if your goal is just to be good and get better, the other stuff will, for the most part, work itself out. So, and then also just takes a lot of performing to like work out a joke. Like, the way you say a joke on stage sounds so natural, and it's not. It's because you go through this incredible repetition and so many rewrites just to get this wording. So it seems so simple, but simplicity is very difficult. Achieving like that simplicity of wording, and maybe it's a similar thing with music, but like, to land on such concise wording usually takes a lot of clunky rough drafts.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard, I mean, just from talking to other people, like, it could be something as simple as just changing one word,
one pause,
and that blows my mind, that small thing could just change it could just change it completely.
Oh, God, completely. One word, usually one word is the joke. Usually it's like a shift in a letter. Sometimes just one letter can change things. The part of it that people probably don't see from the outside is most of comedy writing and most of preparing stand-up is editing, is what you take away. It's going through, because you can have a funny thought this conversation, the way you would talk normally, I would never be as funny in a conversation as I would be on stage, because there's so many extra words and I'm thinking things out as I say them. And with comedy, you get to go back through and take out all the unnecessary parts. It's that getting rid of the fat, and it's that minimizing the amount you're saying, minimizing the amount of words you're saying while maximizing the amount you're saying, you're saying, the content of what you're saying. And that delivery of large amounts of information in a small number of words I think is the comedy, is the joke. It's forcing your brain to unpack a lot of information, and that synaptic misfire that occurs, I think that's what a joke is your brain kind of scrambling to piece together peculiar information in a peculiar way.
I guess that like always the whole, how you said you can edit and just take stuff away. I guess that's how do you decide what you take away? Do you just try it different ways every night or something? And
you try it different ways. That's the cool part, is we get the focus group every sentence, and then you listen to the audience. That's the cool part, is you get to listen to the audience. It's almost not an art form in that you get feedback on every word. You don't have to necessarily be that talented or artistic of a person. You can just throw it out there. If they like it, you keep it. And if they don't, you don't. You do have to, have some ability to know, if it doesn't work, which direction to move. Do I shorten it? What elements do I change? Or do I just throw it out? Is it no good? There's a lot of personal attachment to your own ideas, that you write something you think is funny, and they don't think it's funny, and you want to be like, no, you're wrong, but you can't. You have to shed your ego and be like, if they don't like it, it's not good enough. Let's keep working. And the information is fuzzy when you're performing to big crowds or when you're performing to different people with very subjective tastes. You're not always going to get the same read, but over a large enough sample size, you start to see, 90% of the time this gets a laugh. So that's definitely something. And then after that whole process of just making to see if it gets a laugh, then you have to see if it's hack. Then you have to see, have other comics done it? Is this not that inventive of a premise? Is this not that inventive of a punchline? So that's that whole process. So many jokes I've written, and I like it and the crowd likes it, but then I realize, it's nothing new.
How do you, I guess from what everybody you watch and listen to, that's how you find out if it's new or if somebody else has done something similar? Or
yes, that's
if true. That question makes sense.
That's what you said is correct, is that you just watch a lot, and you hopefully have friends who will tell you if a joke is hack, or enemies. And also, after you've been doing it long enough and you've watched it long enough, you can also sense that a joke will have been done already. You can always be like, I've never heard it, but there's just a great chance that someone else has this. There's a great chance that multiple people have it. Based on the information I'm working off of and the fact that everyone else has these pieces, it's unlikely that no one else has put them together in a joke. And now with Twitter, you're not even competing with the comedians. You're competing with anyone who types out a joke and presses send.
That's that I imagine, like, I get what you're saying. I imagine just after a while you're like, okay, you might come up with an idea and say, well, there's no way somebody hasn't written something about this already. Or you might just get like the vibes like, okay, somebody has probably already touched this. Right.
Especially with current events. Yeah.
Like with especially like political stuff and
doubly some political stuff. It's a great time to not be a political comedian, because you have so much less competition, because everyone's focusing their efforts on writing about politics. And even though it seems like a lot to work with, it's the same major points.
Yeah.
And it used to be, it was just the Daily Show that was doing jokes about politics. That was it.
Yeah.
That was the only place that was, and then maybe like Dennis Miller or Bill Maher. But now there's like Samantha Bee Daily Show, John Oliver, Patriot Act. I'm probably missing. Oh, and then like Colbert, Myers, even Fallon and Corden do political stuff every night. So it's just, and it's not a fun subject, like you were saying. It's just not. I find myself gravitating towards talking about politics, but it's not fun. It's unhappy topics. It's annoying. It's depressing.
Yeah, I care, but I don't care. Like, it's just, I can't watch the news. Like, they start going into certain things. I'm just like, I don't want to listen to this. Like, I know what's going on. I just can't, it's just too.
Yeah.
Now, about your podcast that you mentioned, I have not listened to it, but I do know of it.
Yeah, we do. We go through this. My girlfriend started comedy about a year and a half ago after I was at 8 years in.
Mm-hmm.
And she wanted to try stand-up. She had done improv, so she started doing it here in New York City, which is difficult. It's very, very difficult because a lot of people want to do it here. So you go to open mics in New York City, which means you're performing only in front of other people who want to perform. 20 people show up to a bar, you put your name in a hat, and you each get to do 3 minutes. And people who do comedy don't laugh at comedy for a lot of reasons. And you can do 3 of those a night, every night, easily, because New York is such a big place with so many comedians that you're seeing the same people over and over again. So it's a very hard place to start. But we wanted to kind of document those early stages and what it's like starting as an open micer, doing your first show, getting booked, producing your first show. And hopefully we'll capture more events, but it's been a fun guide to those very first baby steps of comedy by doing it from the perspective of disparate experience levels.
Well, that's awesome. I'm definitely going to check it out because I read about it. I was like, oh, that sounds very interesting. Because I've never.
Yeah, and we have good guests now, so we're bringing on more guests. So.
Well, I think that's everything I have. Do you have anything you want to do you have anything you want to plug specifically? This will be out. Comedy? This will be out on the Friday the 16th. Is when this will be. Just so if you're,
I have no dates. So
okay.
I have nothing to plug. Well, if you're in New York City, every Thursday, my girlfriend produces a show called Now and Then Comedy at Now and Then Williamsburg. It's really great. Recommend it. Our podcast, she does stand up too. If you are thinking about starting comedy or if you are doing comedy, I think it's a useful guide. Or if you happen to be a fan of any of the comedians we bring on, listen to those episodes. That's about it for me. Yeah, follow my my sculpture. Don't follow my regular page. I'm not good at Instagram, but follow my sculptures at Cockblock Gargoyles. I make polymer clay sculptures, and that's more my passion now than comedy. Because,
awesome.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for checking out this week's episode. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, comment, subscribe. Or if you're listening, please rate and write a review. I greatly appreciate the support. New episodes every Friday. Be sure to follow the podcast on all social media at Life's a Bit Pod. Catch you on the next one.